my beloved child. Before you even try to make sense of this, before your mind rushes to deny what your heart already feels, listen carefully, because this is not just another story. This is something that is happening in a space beyond logic, beyond timing, beyond what the world calls right or wrong, because somewhere, someone stood in front of a sacred promise, looked into another person's eyes, said the vows, accepted the ring, smiled for the world. But deep inside, there was a silence that spoke only your name, and you felt it, didn't you? That strange pull, that sudden heaviness in your chest without any visible reason, that unexplainable shift in your energy, as if something important had just happened but no one told you. And that's because they didn't, the world didn't, but the connection did, because while they were marrying someone else, a part of them was reaching out to you in a way no one could see, no one could understand, not even them completely, and that message they left. It wasn't written in ink, it wasn't spoken out loud, it wasn't posted anywhere for people to read, it was left in the only place where truth cannot be hidden. In the invisible thread that still connects you both, and you've been feeling it, haven't you? Those sudden memories that hit you out of nowhere, those flashes of their face when you were doing something completely unrelated, those moments when your mood changed without explanation, like your soul picked up a signal your mind couldn't decode, because at the exact moment they were choosing a life that didn't include you physically, their soul was refusing to let you go completely, and that contradiction created something powerful, something intense, something that traveled across distance and time just to reach you. And you might be asking yourself why would someone marry another person but still think about you, still send something your way? And the truth is not as simple as loyalty or betrayal, it goes deeper than that, it goes into fear, timing, pressure, and choices made under circumstances that the outside world will never fully understand, because sometimes people don't marry the one they feel the deepest connection with, they marry the one that fits into the life they think they are supposed to live. And while they were standing there, fulfilling expectations, following a path that made sense on paper, something inside them broke quietly, and in that quiet breaking, your name echoed louder than ever, and they couldn't say it, they couldn't show it, but they couldn't ignore it either. So they did the only thing they could. They left a message, not through words, but through energy, through that invisible connection that refuses to die no matter how far apart two people go, and that message reached you in the form of restlessness, in the form of questions you didn't know you needed answers to, in the form of a strange awareness that something had changed, and maybe you tried to brush it off. Maybe you told yourself it's just your imagination, but deep down, you knew this wasn't random, because your soul recognized something your mind is still trying to catch up with. And what makes this even more intense is that they don't fully understand it themselves. They might think they've moved on, they might convince themselves that this was the right decision, that this is what life is supposed to look like. But there will be moments, quiet moments, when everything slows down and the noise fades, and in those moments, they will feel you again, just like you felt them, and it will confuse them, it will shake them, because how do you explain feeling connected to someone who is no longer a part of your visible life? How do you explain thinking about someone at the exact moment you're supposed to be building something new with someone else? And this is where the message becomes even more powerful. Because it wasn't just about them missing you, it was about them acknowledging, even if only for a second, that what they had with you was real, that it mattered, that it didn't just disappear because they made a different choice, and that acknowledgement carries weight, it carries energy, and that energy found its way to you, and now you're here, feeling something you can't fully explain, trying to make sense of a connection that refuses to follow the rules, and erase what you need to understand. This doesn't mean you were meant to be together in the way you imagined. It doesn't guarantee that they will come back or that things will unfold the way your heart secretly hopes, but it does mean that what you shared left a mark, a deep one that couldn't be erased even by something as final as marriage, and that says something about the depth of that connection, something that goes beyond labels and timelines. And instead of letting this consume you, instead of getting lost in what-ifs and possibilities, you need to see it for what it truly is. A moment of truth that revealed how deeply two souls can recognize each other even when life pulls them in different directions, and yes, it hurts, because knowing that someone felt you at that level but still chose a different path creates a kind of pain that is hard to put into words, but it also brings clarity, because now you know that what you felt wasn't one-sided, it wasn't imagined, it wasn't something you created in your mind. It was real, and even they couldn't deny it completely, and sometimes, that truth is enough to set you free, because you don't need to chase something that already proved its existence, you don't need to question your worth when someone else's choices were shaped by factors that had nothing to do with how deeply they felt you, and as time moves forward, this message will slowly transform inside you. It will stop feeling like confusion and start feeling like understanding. It will stop feeling like loss and start feeling like closure, not the kind that comes with explanations and conversations, but the kind that comes from within, from knowing without needing proof, and one day, you will look back at this moment and realize that it wasn't about them choosing someone else, it was about you realizing the depth of your own connection, your own capacity to feel something so real that it transcended distance, silence, and even decisions that seemed final. And that realization will change the way you see everything, because you will no longer settle for anything less than that level of depth, that level of truth, and the next time something like this enters your life, it won't be hidden, it won't be complicated, it won't be something that exists in silence, it will be clear, it will be mutual, and it will be chosen, not just felt, because you deserve a connection that doesn't have to send messages from afar, you deserve one that stands beside you openly, fully, without hesitation, and until that happens, take this moment for what it is. Not a sign to hold on, but a sign to understand, to grow, and to finally release what was never meant to stay, even if it was meant to be felt this deeply. And now what you are beginning to notice, even if you haven't fully admitted it to yourself yet, is that the message they left did not end in that single moment, it didn't just arrive and disappear, it stayed, it lingered, it started unfolding slowly inside you like something alive. Because this kind of connection does not operate on a one-time signal, it moves in waves, it revisits you in quiet hours, it shows up when you least expect it, and there will be days when you feel completely normal, almost detached, as if you've moved past it, and then suddenly, without warning, something pulls you back into that same energy, that same presence, and you find yourself thinking about them again, not in a forced way, not because you chose to, but because something within you was triggered again. And that is where the second layer of this message begins to reveal itself, because what they left for you was not just a feeling, it was a realization that is still trying to surface, and the reason it hasn't fully settled yet is because a part of you is still resisting it, a part of you is still trying to interpret this through logic, through right and wrong, through what should or shouldn't happen, but this situation was never meant to fit into those categories. It exists in that uncomfortable space where emotions are real but outcomes don't align, where connections are undeniable but choices don't reflect them, and that contradiction is exactly what is forcing you to grow right now, because you are being pushed to understand something deeper than attachment, something deeper than expectation. You are being pushed to understand that not every powerful connection is meant to become a permanent presence in your life, and that is a truth that most people spend years trying to accept. And even now, you might feel a resistance rising inside you. You might feel that quiet voice saying, "But why would something feel this real if it wasn't meant to stay?" And that question is valid, but the answer is not what you think, because sometimes, connections come into your life not to remain, but to awaken something within you that would have otherwise stayed dormant, and what they awakened in you was not just love for them, it was a deeper awareness of yourself, your emotions, your capacity to feel, your ability to connect beyond the surface, and once that awakening happens, the purpose of that connection has already been fulfilled, even if it doesn't continue in the way you hoped, and this is where things start to shift in a way that might feel uncomfortable at first, because instead of focusing on them, your attention slowly begins to turn inward. You start questioning not what they felt, but what you felt, not what they chose, but what you now choose, and that is the turning point. Because as long as your focus remains on their actions, their marriage, their life, you will stay stuck in a loop that has no resolution, but the moment you bring that focus back to yourself, something begins to change, something begins to release, and you start to see this entire experience from a different perspective, not as something that happened to you, but as something that happened for you. And that shift is subtle, but it is powerful, because it takes away the feeling of helplessness and replaces it with awareness, and awareness is what breaks emotional cycles, and as this awareness grows, you will start noticing patterns that you didn't see before. You will start understanding why certain moments between you and them felt so intense, why certain interactions stayed with you longer than they should have, why you couldn't fully detach even when you tried, and all of that will begin to make sense, not because they explain it to you, but because you finally see it clearly within yourself, and at the same time, something else will start happening on their side too, even if you never witness it directly, because energy doesn't just move in one direction. Just like you felt that initial message, they will feel the aftermath of it. They will feel moments of stillness where their mind drifts back to you, moments where something feels incomplete even if everything around them appears perfect, and this is not about them regretting their decision or wanting to reverse it. It's about them processing something they couldn't fully process before, because in that moment of marriage, everything moved too fast, everything was too overwhelming, and the only way they could deal with that internal conflict was to suppress it, to push it aside, to convince themselves that this was the right path. But suppressed emotions don't disappear, they resurface in quieter, more subtle ways, and when they do, they bring clarity that wasn't available before. And that clarity might not change their situation, but it will change their understanding, and that understanding is part of the same message you received, because what connects you is not the outcome, it's the realization, and that realization is unfolding in both of you, just in different ways, at different times, and as this continues, you will notice that the intensity of what you feel starts to transform. It won't disappear overnight, but it will lose its grip on you. It will stop feeling like something you need to hold on to, and start feeling like something you experienced, something that shaped you, something that taught you without words, and that is when you will know that you are no longer waiting for anything from them, you are no longer looking for signs, you are no longer trying to decode every feeling that comes and goes, because you have already understood the message, you have already received what was meant for you, and at that point, something very important happens. Something that changes the direction of your life in a quiet but undeniable way. You become available again, not just to other people, but to yourself, to new experiences, to connections that don't come with confusion or distance, and this availability is not forced, it doesn't come from trying to move on, it comes naturally as a result of letting go, and when you reach that state, you will realize that what once felt like something unfinished was actually complete in its own way. It didn't need closure in the traditional sense, it didn't need explanations or conversations or final words, because the message itself was the closure, the feeling itself was the confirmation, and the understanding that followed was the release, and that is something very few people get to experience. Because most people stay stuck in the first phase, they stay stuck in the confusion, the longing, the unanswered questions, but you are moving beyond that, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. Even if there are moments when you slip back into old thoughts, old emotions, that doesn't mean you haven't progressed, it just means you are in the middle of the process. And processes are not linear, they move back and forth until they settle, and as they settle, so will you, and one day, without even realizing when it happened, you will think about them again, but this time, it won't come with that same weight, it won't pull you into a spiral of emotions. It will simply pass through your mind like a memory that belongs to a different version of you. And in that moment, you will understand everything without needing to question it, and that is when you will know that the message they left for you has fully completed its journey. And by the time you reach this final stage, something inside you has already changed in a way that no one around you can fully see, but you can feel it in the way you breathe, in the way you react, in the way your thoughts no longer chase the same loops they once did, because what once felt like a mystery that needed solving has now become a truth that you simply carry without resistance, and this is where the deepest part of their message finally reveals itself, not through them, not through any external sign, but through the silence you now understand. Because the real message was never about them coming back, it was never about undoing what has already been done, it was about showing you something so clear that it would permanently shift the way you see connection, love, and yourself. And now you are starting to see it, you are starting to understand that the reason it felt so intense was not just because of who they were, but because of who you were in that connection, the version of you that was open, aware, emotionally present, and capable of feeling something that most people spend their entire lives searching for, and instead of seeing that as something you lost, you are beginning to see it as something you discovered, something that belongs to you, not to them, because they were only the mirror that reflected it back to you. And once that reflection has been seen clearly, it cannot be unseen, and this is why the attachment slowly dissolves, not because the connection was weak, but because you no longer need them to validate what you already know is real within you, and at the same time, there is a quiet acceptance forming, an acceptance that does not come with bitterness, does not come with regret, but comes with a kind of calm understanding that everything unfolded exactly the way it was meant to, even if it didn't match your expectations. And this acceptance is powerful because it frees you from the invisible weight you didn't even realize you were carrying, the weight of wondering, the weight of replaying moments, the weight of imagining different outcomes. All of that begins to fade, and what replaces it is clarity, a clarity that allows you to look at the entire experience without distortion, without emotional overwhelm. And when you look at it from this place, you start to notice something that was always there but hidden beneath the intensity. You start to see that their choice was never a reflection of your worth, it was a reflection of their path, their fears, their circumstances, and once you truly understand that, something inside you settles in a way that no reassurance from anyone else could have achieved, because it came from your own realization, and this realization changes the way you move forward. It changes the standards you hold, the energy you accept, the way you recognize what is truly aligned with you and what is not, and this is where the final transformation happens, because you are no longer drawn to connections that leave you questioning your place. You are no longer willing to invest in something that exists in uncertainty, because you have already experienced what real depth feels like, and now you know that depth should not come with confusion, it should come with clarity, it should come with presence, it should come with mutual choice, and anything less than that no longer holds the same appeal it once did. And this is how you outgrow what once felt impossible to release, not by forcing yourself to let go, but by evolving to a point where holding on no longer makes sense. And as this evolution settles, there is one final layer of their message that becomes clear, something that you might not have been ready to understand before, and that is this. They didn't just leave a message because they couldn't let go, they left it because, in that moment, you were the truth they couldn't fully live, and even though they chose a different path, that truth still mattered, it still existed, and acknowledging it, even silently, was their way of honoring what they felt. And while that may never turn into something tangible in your life, it has already served its purpose in a way that goes beyond outcomes, because it brought you face to face with a level of emotional awareness that has now become a part of you, and this is where your focus finally returns completely to your own journey, not as an escape, not as a distraction, but as a natural continuation of everything you have understood. And as you move forward, you will begin to notice new connections entering your life, but this time, you will see them differently, you will feel them differently, because you are no longer searching from a place of lack, you are recognizing from a place of knowing, and that changes everything, because when you recognize instead of search, you don't settle, you don't chase, you don't confuse intensity with alignment, you simply see what is real and what is not, and you choose accordingly. And one day, when a connection appears that meets you with the same depth but without the distance, without the confusion, without the silence, you will understand why this had to unfold the way it did. Because it prepared you, it refined your understanding, it strengthened your awareness, and it made you ready for something that does not require hidden messages or unspoken feelings, something that stands openly in your life and chooses you as clearly as you choose it. And when that happens, you will no longer look back at this story with longing, you will look at it with gratitude, because you will see that it was never about losing them, It was about finding yourself in a way that nothing else could have done, and that is the final truth, the one that stays with you long after the emotions have settled, long after the connection has faded into memory, the truth that you were never meant to hold on to something that existed in silence. You were meant to experience it, understand it, and then rise beyond it into something that speaks your name not in hidden ways, but in a presence that never leaves you questioning where you stand.